Hey, what's going on, guys? Welcome back to my channel. This is Blood Phantom 81. In this video, I'm doing a stock market recap and update. So, pretty good day for the accounts, plus 11K. And I think it's not too far-fetched to say that I'm probably going to hit 3.38 or 39 over the next 2 or 3 weeks if what I think is going to happen actually happens. Actually, not so fun fact is that I got hit by a big tax bill, which has 100% to do with something called a wash sale. So I'm going to be paying that over the next few months, maybe even 4 months or something like that. If you guys want to see a video on that, which actually could save you guys thousands of dollars, to make sure that you guys don't make that mistake, and in fact, how to use the stock market to your advantage from a tax perspective, because now I know more about it. If you guys want me to make a video about that, let me know. But basically, I'm not going to be depositing any more money into this portfolio, but I think it could continue to rally. And so, yeah, so let's just jump right into the chart so we can talk about the Nasdaq as well as some stocks that I'm really excited about. So I'll start with what I'm most excited about, and that is semiconductors. So to be honest, this is one of the most beautiful looking setups that I've seen. There is so much beauty in the world in general if you're looking in the right places. And so what we have here is a pretty nice consolidation pattern. Now we're consolidating above the 50-day moving average. Obviously, it's acting as support. Really nice reaction today. Would not be surprised if we have some follow through. And yeah, it's just a really nice pattern. And once this actually concludes, in my opinion, which it will, to the upside, would not be surprised if we have a similar move to this one. So maybe something like another 13 or maybe even 14% rally to kind of finish that off. And so yeah, I'm really liking semiconductors right now. But let's go ahead and talk a little bit about the broader markets. So another really good development at the moment. So what happened recently was we had a bit of a brief pullback consolidation at the moment, but it looks like we ended up breaking out to the upside out of this consolidation, and we're sort of retesting that area right now. So this right here is a really good development. Would not be surprised if this kind of concludes this consolidation. And by the way, I made a really good call in my video a couple weeks ago where I mentioned that I thought we would get to all-time highs in the short term. That's exactly what we did. And so the sort of technique that I used was Elliott wave fib based extensions. And so we hit the 0.1 or the 1.382 extension, which is relative to wave one. So this is the wave three. And so now we're in wave four consolidation. And so I'm my stance is that we're going to have a wave five to finish this off. And so the wave five rally, I think, could take us, let's say, the same size of wave one. So that's about 8%. Maybe even a little bit more. So I'm thinking the Nasdaq is also going to rally as long as we can maintain above this consolidation. Obviously, it's possible that we gap down and get back in it, or even head a little bit lower. That's not going to be the end of the world. I really like the fact that we made this higher high today relative to this high. So yeah, things are looking pretty good for the Nasdaq as well. Let's go ahead and take a look at the S&P 500. I also want to add a little bit of commentary. I know that we talked, well, on Twitter, all I've been hearing about is the decision that Biden made well, I don't need to get into it, but basically, there's a lot of folks that were calling for a crash. Biden's going to tank your 401ks. And this is not even a political statement, right? I never really cared about what Trump did as far as the stock market goes. Regardless of whether we're going up or down, it never really mentioned Trump's name, right? The only reason I'm mentioning Biden's name right now is because it's just a teaching lesson, right? It's like, who cares? Like, who cares what he does or doesn't do? Who cares what Trump does or doesn't do, right? This shouldn't affect our investment strategies. The fact of the matter is, I'm not going to pretend to be some armchair economist. And quite frankly, retail investors just keep playing these stupid games, like putting so much weight into what these presidents say. Me putting it politely is saying, hey, don't worry about it. But me being honest, as if I was talking to a friend, I would say there's a high chance what they do or don't do doesn't even have much of an effect at all on the actual stock market. So, when I was reading Twitter, I was like, oh, apparently I should be bracing for a stock market crash. Our 401ks are going to go down the toilet. But we actually made all-time highs today. So, yeah, you guys know I'm not going to put any weight on, political stuff or any kind of agenda or economic policies. I'll leave that for the folks who want to read CNBC and watch all that crap. I'll leave it for those folks. But for myself, I'm going to be focused on what buyers and sellers are doing, right? And so what we have on the S&P 500 is obviously like a kind of breakout. This is a monthly chart, as you guys can see, pretty similar to the breakouts we've had in the past. And so, yeah, now we're starting to see some actual follow through, which is nice. Obviously, this doesn't mean that we're going to continue indefinitely. Like, we could have sharp pullbacks, but for the most part, as we're above this range, I'm still going to be bullish. I like the potential for us to head even higher. And one thing I really want to talk about is consolidations and how they relate to rallies, because really satisfying moves in the stock market can happen after we have really choppy moves and dissatisfying moves. So if we think about this period right here, for example, this was so choppy. It was just like up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down. Even when we did make higher highs, we had really sharp pullbacks. So higher high, just brief higher high, and then sharp pullback, brief higher high, and then we had a pullback. But what was different about this pullback relative to this one is that this is actually significantly higher than this low. And so I like to think about it as an airplane taking off. So for example, when you get on an airplane and it's about to take off, what happens? In the beginning, the plane may not be moving very fast at all. Obviously, like, it has to get into position on the runway before it can actually start to move. And so this is when the market is kind of setting up for that, right? Like, maybe it has to do a 180-degree turn or a 270-degree turn, whatever, right, to actually get in the path. And then once it starts to accelerate, it's still very bumpy, right? Like, you still feel all the bumps, and there's like, it feels like turbulence, but it's just on the ground. And then what happens? It starts to speed up. And then at some point, what happens? The front wheel isn't even touching the ground anymore, right? The front wheel is about to take off. The only thing that's left is the back wheel. And then we have this takeoff. And so we think about similar periods. Let's say 2017 rally. It's pretty similar, right? So brief higher high, sharp pullback, brief higher high, sharp pullback. And then we had a really nice bottoming pattern here. And then brief higher high, retest this breakout area, and then a really satisfying run after that, right? And so that's kind of what we're experiencing right now. Now, the question is, do we continue in the short term? And so I do feel like trying to predict the short-term moves is not that helpful for myself. So I won't. I'm just going to keep my stance of being bullish in the midterm, and keeping it like that. So let's go ahead and talk about the Nasdaq real quick, just again, because most of my stocks actually have to do with the Nasdaq. So the way I see it is, my stance is bullish, and so as we start to break out, like I think we will, I am going to start to take some profits here and there, mostly because I'm using some margin, which I don't want to be using. And the other thing is that this could be a completed move once we do have another rally. I would just like to be lighter. That's just me, right? Like, you guys could do whatever you want. If you're a buy and hold investor, like, that's great. Continue doing that. It's actually really hard to beat buy and hold. I've definitely been burned in the past. You guys have watched me get burned in the past. So this is just me, right? I'm going to continue to take profits as we head higher, but that's just my strategy. And I do think, I'm different than the investor I was during this time period, right? And so I just need to get lighter. And that's basically what I'm doing. I also want to talk about portfolio allocation. So taking a step away from, what the market's doing now. Obviously, it's our decision to not really try to fully time the market, but it's our decision in terms of what we buy and how we want to take advantage of these market moves. So I ended up going maybe too heavy into some of these sectors that I think might take a little bit longer to play out. I'm not going to say what sectors, but some hyper growth sectors. And so that's actually part of the reason why my portfolio isn't, extremely bullish. I think the performance is lagging just a little bit, and I think it's because I went a little bit too heavy in some of these super longer term hyper growth stocks and sectors. And so I kind of want to shift away from that now that I've got happy in my positions. Kind of want to go back to short term tech, which has always been the bread and butter of my portfolio. So yeah, that's basically where my focus is going to be again. Because I do like those gains, right? And so yeah, once it starts to get to 390, 400, obviously I'll be taking some off the table. But yeah, that's gonna wrap it up. Actually, last thing I'll say before I let you guys go is I do want to plug my Patreon because I'm starting to make some really cool posts on there. For example, I ended up buying Cloudflare over Fastly, and I made that decision on my Patreon. And the reason why I did that was because when the market was pulling back, my sister, had some cash and she was like, what should I invest in? And so I was thinking about like, okay, what are some stocks that could be good over the, next few years? And I thought about the cloud space, but particularly, content delivery networks and cloud computing. And then Fastly and Cloudflare came to mind. And I wasn't willing to recommend Fastly to her, but I was willing to recommend Cloudflare to her. And then I thought, if I'm not willing to recommend Fastly to a family member, then why am I buying Fastly? And why don't I just buy the leader, right? And Cloudflare is the clear leader. And so Cloudflare has been the company that I'm really excited about. And in future pullbacks, I would like to buy more of. And then another couple types of stocks that I'm pretty happy about is Skills. I made a video about Skills when I was talking about SPACs. And I mean, this thing just skyrocketed higher. So I made that video on this day. Following day, it bounces, 33%. And so pretty happy about that. So, there's some stocks I'm happy with that I'm glad I took that chance. But I think like Skills, for example, it's a smaller position than Hyliion, and I don't really like that. And so I need to be more aware of how much money I'm investing where, because it's easy to lose track of that. So that's kind of my feedback for myself. And of course, taking bigger bets is always going to be a point of emphasis for myself. So anyway, that's where I wrap up the video. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.